Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, let's just dive right into this, because today we're tackling a feeling I can almost guarantee you've experienced. It's that bone-deep collective burnout that just kind of seems to define our modern world, right? We live in a society that is absolutely obsessed with stuff you can touch, count, and buy. We map every tiny microchip inside our phones, we obsessively track the latest social algorithms, and we literally measure our personal worth by numbers on a screen. We become incredibly good at looking at the very surface of things. But underneath all that tracking and measuring, there is a profound underlying exhaustion. So why does the modern world feel so exhausted? I mean, why do we sit in these perfectly climate-controlled, air-conditioned rooms, staring at glowing screens, and yet feel this heavy tiredness that sleep simply cannot fix? Well, it's because we've started treating ourselves, and everyone around us, like wet computers made of meat. We're staring at screens endlessly, searching for meaning, completely disconnected from the actual world around us. Honestly, believing that the material world, that things we can physically lock in a box or track on an app, is the only world, that's actually a super weird, brand new phase humanity is going through. Deep down, our culture is quietly panicking. We know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. We feel like something massive is just missing. And if you scratch the paint off this modern, hyper-measured world, you actually find something ancient underneath. For 99% of human history, people didn't look at a mountain and just see a pile of rocks waiting for extraction. They intuitively understood that the universe we see is just the outer skin of something alive, breathing, and deeply connected. We're completely missing this massive, invisible current moving beneath the surface. Okay, Section 1. Reading the leaning grass. A lesson from the tracker. To really wrap our heads around what we've lost, let's look at a grounding metaphor. So an old tracker once took his grandson high up into the mountain ridges, deep into these thick pine trees. The boy was acting like a typical modern kid, snapping twigs, kicking pebbles, desperately looking for something obvious to point at, like a deer or a hawk. He was hunting for static things. But the grandfather stopped, grabbed the boy by the shoulder, and pointed down into this ordinary, messy patch of wild grass. He told the boy, "You're watching the feet. You're looking at where things have already been. Look at the lean." The grass wasn't just sitting there. It was leaning in a specific rhythmic direction, responding to the wind, the slope, the memory of water. To the boy, it was just a messy field. To the tracker, it was a precise map of an invisible traveler. And the tracker shared this piece of profound wisdom with his grandson. He said, "They build a house to keep the world out and then wonder why they feel like prisoners inside their own skin. People who only trust what they can lock in a box are missing the entire point of reality. They just don't see that the land is breathing. The physical world isn't some collection of static, dead objects. It's more like a language written in invisible ink. And if you ignore this breathing land, well, you end up feeling completely trapped inside your constructed, box-like life." Section 2. Ancient names for life. The invisible engine. Now, this invisible current isn't just nice poetry. It was a foundational, cross-cultural intuition shared by almost every great civilization in history. First, let's look to the East. The ancient Chinese called this invisible engine Qi, and the original character for Qi depicted steam rising from cooking rice. Think about that image for a second. It's invisible, yet dynamic, hot, and totally full of life. They didn't see the cosmos as this cold, dead place, but as an immense, self-regulating plumbing system powered by this living steam. Imagine the physical world as ice sculptures left out in the sun. A modern scientist comes along and measures the angles of the frozen ice. But an ancient master looks at the water flowing underneath. The ice is temporary, right? The flowing current of Qi is what actually matters. And just south of the Himalayas, ancient Indian sages called this exact same life force prana, the sacred breath. There's this fantastic old story in the Upanishads where the different human senses, sight, hearing, speech, and mind, were all boasting, claiming that they were the ones holding the body upright. But then prana, the life breath, simply started to leave the body. And as it lifted out, all the other senses were immediately pulled out along with it, basically like bees forced to follow a queen out of a hive. The senses suddenly realized they weren't in charge at all. They were just small light bulbs plugged into the massive, invisible generator of prana. And lest you think this is purely Eastern mysticism, let's talk about the hyper-rational ancient Greek and Roman Stoics. These guys hated superstition, yet the absolute cornerstone of their tough-minded physics was a concept called pneuma, which means breath or spirit. They believed an invisible cosmic current shot through every single atom like an electric charge, and they logically mapped it out through 4 grades of tension. Notice how it scales up. Hexis holds rocks together, Physis powers plant growth, Psyche gives animals their instincts, and Logos gives humans our rational minds. This invisible engine scales through literally all matter. Think about what this means. It means that even a seemingly dead granite stone is actually an invisible, high-velocity energy dance. The Stoics would absolutely laugh at us calling a rock dead. It's only holding its shape because of a fierce energy gripping the particles together. And because this exact same energy connects absolutely everything into an unbroken web, they believed that if you poisoned your own character, say, through lying or cowardice, you weren't just breaking some arbitrary social rule. You were creating a literal blockage in the cosmic airflow. You were practically giving the universe asthma. All right, Section 3, Trapped in Plato's Cave, Measuring the Shadows. So if this vibrant, interconnected worldview was so universal, how on earth did we lose it? How did we become so captivated by the wrong layer of reality? Well, Plato described our modern predicament perfectly in his famous allegory of the cave over 2,000 years ago. Imagine prisoners chained since birth, facing a blank wall. Behind them is a fire, and people carry objects in front of that fire, casting shadows on the wall for the prisoners to see. Having known nothing else, the prisoners do exactly what modern society does today. They establish universities, they hand out prestigious awards, and they endlessly praise the people who are best at predicting which shadow is going to move next. We literally map the evolutionary track of a shadow and lock anyone who dares suggest there is something else going on behind our backs. Now, if a prisoner escapes into the blinding sunlight, at first the real objects look blurry and honestly less real than the crisp shadows he studied his whole life. But eventually, he realizes the sun is the true source of reality. The physical stuff we chase after, it's just a shadow. The ideas, the math, and the energy behind them are the true architecture of the universe. Think about it. A circle drawn in the sand is lumpy and easily washed away. But the concept of a circle, the flawless mathematical formula itself, is indestructible. It doesn't decay. The underlying math is vastly more real than the temporary drawing in the sand. So how did we get stuck back in the cave? Well, about 400 years ago, during the scientific revolution, thinkers decided the safest way to understand the universe was to redefine it as a giant clock made of dead gears. They separated the mind, locking it safely inside your skull, from physical matter, which they abruptly declared to be dead and mechanical. Now, this was a brilliant move for inventing machines, for sure, but it was an absolute disaster for our minds. We basically evicted the living breath from the world, leaving ourselves stranded in a warehouse of dead parts. And that directly leads to today. A specific modern exhaustion sets in. It is the deep spiritual tiredness of the prisoner who suddenly suspects they've spent their whole life measuring the shadows of ghosts. Section 4, Waking Up. The importance of this perspective. Look, there is a way out. Reclaiming this ancient worldview isn't a step backward. It is absolutely the crucial, practical antidote to our modern exhaustion. The rule is simple. Stop looking at objects and start looking at relationships. You do not need to adopt an ancient religion to wake up. It is entirely a matter of where you put your attention. The importance of this perspective literally cannot be overstated. It changes how you interact with everything in your life. And it's just as active in a concrete high-rise in the middle of a bustling city as it is out in the deep woods. You just have to train your eyes to see past the physical items taking up space. Let's talk about how you actually read the room using this ancient discernment in daily life. When you walk into a meeting, don't just see individuals sitting on chairs. See the invisible lines of social, psychological, and energetic tension connecting them. Notice the lean of the room. Feel who naturally holds the gravity in the space. Identify who is draining the environment's vitality through a toxic posture, and actively look for those silent stabilizers who are holding the room together just by being quietly anchored. The ancients called this discernment. It's the capacity to read those invisible currents before they manifest as real-world crises. And you know, this shift in perspective completely transforms even our most difficult moments, like the end of life. When a physical body begins to fail, a strict materialist panics. They only see a machine falling apart, gears breaking down. But the ancient view, if you know how to look, you see something else entirely. You witness a slow, majestic withdrawal of a presence that has simply finished its work. You can literally feel the room's pressure shift as the energy gently releases its hold on the clay. The illusion of a dead universe vanishes, and you are left witnessing a wholly unshakable architecture. So I want to leave you with this. Are you going to keep measuring shadows? Or learn to breathe with the world? Don't let yourself get swallowed by the noise, the glowing screens, and the exhausting surface-level drama of modern life. We have a choice here. We can remain prisoners inside our own skin, panicking over every single metric, or we can have the courage to look past the surface and read the quiet currents underneath. The invisible engine is running all around you. It's time to learn how to breathe with the land before it decides it's had enough of our noise.